obviously the big story this week, it came out yesterday, TMZ reported that Jack Swagger was arrested following Tuesday night SmackDown tapings in Biloxi, Mississippi. He apparently was speeding, got pulled over, and they found some marijuana in somewhere in this car, and he's now being charged with speeding, DUI, and possession of marijuana. Now, this comes just days after he won the Elimination Chamber and was on to be in the biggest match of his life against Alberto Del Rio at WrestleMania.
Right.
Obviously, there's a lot to talk about with this story. What's your take on his arrest?
Well, there certainly are worse crimes, but this is not a good one, particularly because of the timing of it, but also because WWE is looking for a certain type of PR from this situation in terms of promoting this Jack Swagger concept, and some people call it the Tea Party kind of gimmick, or going off of immigration and all that stuff. But in reality, now they're getting a totally different type of pub from this, and that's really not what Vince wants, particularly as you're in the road to WrestleMania here, and you have a heightened awareness in the New York metro market, which is the #1 market. So things are amplified in the wrong way for where he wants this story to be, just 10, 12 days after he pulled the trigger on the angle. And it's not good. It's not something that's new to Jack Swagger. Behind the scenes, there's been an issue with him on similar issues, and since he started with the company developmental. When I was there when he started, he was known as Jake Hager, which is his real name. He was an amateur wrestler in college and was in OVW for a while, and finally gets called up, and we know the rest of the story. But he's been having, I would guess you would call, struggles with responsibility and immaturity, and these are two signs of that. And someone told me that, I guess, on February 16th, he had tweeted something referencing partying and getting high on his Twitter account, which really kind of highlights that he really must have an issue with being, when you have a public persona, and he does, he's a wrestler, he's on TV every week, you can't be going in that direction when you're with WWE. Now, if you're with another company that's a little bit more counterculture, sure, but that's not what WWE is. A publicly traded company with or a family that's very conservative running it. That's not what you do. And if you want to play the game and be successful, just ask the Diaz brothers how that works. If you want to be successful and you want to play the game and make money, that's not what you do. Do what you want on your own time, but don't do it on WWE time and get pulled over.
Yeah, and this is obviously the timing cannot be worse, as they're pushing him as the strong heel to face Alberto Del Rio. What do you think they should do now? Right now he's scheduled to face Del Rio at WrestleMania. My guess is that something will change between now and then. But what do you think, having been there when a similar situation happened with Rob Van Dam? What do you think they will do or should do?
Well, I think about my time as a promoter, and I had some issues when I was running Major League Wrestling. Guy got arrested, or guy was held for an issue, whatever it was, and you're frustrated because you have someone you've put a lot of money and a lot of your resources behind, puts you in a precarious situation, and you have to make a tough call, and it's a judgment call. It's, do you believe this guy made a in the moment bad decision and it won't be repeated? Or do you think this is part of a bigger issue, and should this is you're just charting this course that could have legs to it in terms of creative, in terms of cool concepts to do in the future, and get some topical coverage from the major media outlets. So is this a one-time offense, and do you push forward with the same guy and keep the course, or do you go in a different direction? I think they're early enough in this concept or this angle that they can do that, and that's what I would do, and that's what we did with Rob Van Dam. I mean, it was regrettable, but Rob wasn't supposed to hold the WWE title for very long. He was supposed to hold it all of maybe another week or two. He was going to be the guy running with the ECW title for a while, but ultimately we knew that Rob wasn't going to be the guy in like 2 or 3 years for this rebooted ECW, but he was going to be the guy to get you going. And obviously that everything was accelerated, and he really never recovered from that with WWE, and they lost faith in him. And he was kind of a placeholder guy that got over other guys, and they never really put too much steam behind him. And that's kind of his own fault. And a lot of people that day in that moment were really frustrated with him because Vince didn't want to, in that case, really push this guy, let alone give him both titles, and he had to be convinced to do such, and he did, because he really was behind rebooting ECW. I know people want to tell you otherwise, but he really wanted that thing to work, and he made a lot of bad decisions about what he envisioned ECW could be, and Paul made some good decisions and also some bad decisions about what ECW should have been, and in the end, it wasn't a success. But everyone was just shaking their head disappointment that day for the bad call that Rob made with Sabu and that drive wherever they were, Michigan or I don't even remember, Ohio. And when you look at this situation, this is a bad call and bad decision making, and so. I think it's early enough that I think you can salvage this. I think you can transfer this angle and the storyline and put it on either a familiar face, i.e., Ted DiBiase Jr., who has done nothing and is a good athlete, good worker, not a good talker. So here's Zeb coming in that maybe can, you could wrap this angle around and be the voice behind it, and in the ring, maybe Ted Jr., who is a good old boy from the South, maybe it is something that could probably get him over the hump and get him some heat because, whatever they've done in the past hasn't really clicked. You could also introduce that guy, Bray Wyatt, who is Mike Rotunda's son, Barry Windham's nephew. Great guy. He was part of the NXT thing back in the day. He's a heavy-set guy, cowboy boots and everything, real throwback gimmick. He has a great voice. Great presence, and maybe this is the perfect introduction for him. Now, you obviously can't headline WrestleMania. Maybe you, right. In the perfect case, maybe you blow this off on Monday, and Swagger, they do the match on Monday, and Del Rio looks like the fighting champion. He takes on short notice, and he wins, and then, Dutch or Zeb, calls in the real authority that was behind this movement, the real guy behind the scenes, and it's, the Wrestler X, whoever it's going to be, Chris Hero, who has a great hillbilly beard right now, or someone like that down in NXT, and they beat the crap out of Del Rio, they beat the crap out of Rodriguez, Sin Cara comes out, they beat the crap out of him, Ray comes out, beat the crap out of him, they do a whole big, long propaganda promo, and you have a whole new person that looks much more interesting, a lot more dominant, a lot more. He doesn't have the baggage of Swagger jobbing for the last few years, and you can bring back Swagger once if they opt to suspend him. You can bring him back, and maybe he's the Mr. Hughes or the Kevin Nash Diesel type guy that's the heater on the outside, the bodyguard, and he's totally disposable at that point. He can be involved, but he doesn't necessarily have to be involved. And if he's not that responsible, then you're not really putting this whole thing around him. So they really have a few options. They can go and reboot it, they can shift it, they can keep the course, or they can just hit the abort button and decide not to proceed with this angle. Knowing Vince, knowing how, from what I've told from friends in creative, he really loves this idea. He's been wanting to do this idea for a while, and they've been working on this actually for 8 to 10 months. They just hadn't really put it together until now. It's been on the back burner. I have a feeling they're not going to cut bait outright on this. Will they make an adjustment? Maybe. Will they just stay the course? It's possible. Hard to tell right now. So the next few days are going to be very interesting, and it's ultimately going to be up to one man, and we'll see where Vince ends up on this topic. And it's also going to be interesting to see how much traction this has with the media. Is TMZ going to be dogging WWE about this? Is this going to be something written up in the New York Post talking about, WrestleMania's around the corner, and Hunter just did some write-ups with Bruno talking about how it's so clean and wholesome backstage, and here you have quite the opposite. So it's going to be interesting to see how that, if there's any blowback. If there isn't, well, maybe they will stay the course. Yeah, it seems like if you take Jack Swagger out, there's just not many options for a world title match. At least a sellable option. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could turn Orton heel, but here you have a guy who has 2 wellness violations of his own. You could have Ziggler, beat Del Rio and do a match with Sheamus or something like that, but nothing that's really that interesting. And so
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I'm kind of guessing that they might actually just stay with Swagger and then suspend him after WrestleMania, but we'll have to see.
That's a long time to wait. That's 6 weeks or so. You know, at that point, it's like that. I don't think they can do that. It's either they suspend them and then you have them back for 2 or 3 weeks going into WrestleMania. You know, 2-week suspension, or you just don't. I don't think you can delay a suspension by 2.5 months because all eyes are on you, and either you're going to act or you're not going to act, or you're going to say you're going to fine him or you're not. You know, whatever they're going to do, I think they have to actually do it now. I don't think you can delay it by almost 2.5 months.
Well, with Rob Van Dam, it was delayed by, wasn't it about a month that it was delayed?
I have to go back and look. I know it was something like they waited a week to get maybe one title off him and then another week to get the other, and then he was suspended or something like that. But if it was a month later, I mean, it was 5-6 years ago, so I can't remember clearly. But there have been convenient suspensions. But I also think I just think there's a lot of reason not to do that, both because you can switch lanes and go in a different direction. He doesn't have the title, and I don't think it's like Jack Swagger himself is going to sell tickets at WrestleMania. So if this is your time to do something, why not do it?